Hello, welcome. My name is Dr. George Mochocki. Today we'll be covering Chapter 2, Ethics and Social Responsibility. You're taking me either on a face-to-face class or online class, or one of my other peers are utilizing this chapter for a note taker. I'm just going to go over to follow along with the book that we're reading. Okay, so we're going to talk about ethics and social responsibility. All right, so let's break it down. Ethics in the workplace. First of all, what is ethics? All right, so let's go. You have my concept maps. Open them up. You click on here. Gives you the first thing of ethics. And remember, I'm going to go through this real quickly. We'll expand this more inside the classroom. Beliefs about what is right or wrong. Right? Good, bad action, inner guiding moral principle that society feels is ethical. Okay, now business ethics is similar to what you would call residential or everyday ethics, but it's a little bit more tied into business dealing, a little uh, uh, dealing with the commerce that businesses have to operate with, whether it's a business or it's whether operating as a business owner and how I did deal with a consumer or a client that I'm dealing with. Okay, the ethical dilemma that we have is a lot of times it's not illegal or it's not legal. It's in that fine gray area, and I have to make a decision. Will it benefit me more? Will it benefit the client? Or could I find that in the middle of that road that benefits both of us? Okay, so that's ethical behavior. And then when you look at the ethical behavior, is what most people believe this is the proper behavior for this situation, proper behavior for this role model that you are acting out or working or selling as your, like myself, as an instructor. What's the role model? What's the ethic behavior of an instructor? No favorites, treat everyone equally, try to help the student to succeed and not to fail within the course. Okay, some unethical behavior, and that let's go from the students thing. How do I cheat? How do I lie? How do I get in here? Right now we have a lot of things. You're looking at different ethics. We're looking at the elections coming up. So you're looking at different candidates. Don't worry about whether I'm a Democrat, Republican, Communist, Socialist, or whatever. Look at the individual and does he or she, his or her values, mirror the values that you think is important for you, and that's how you vote for your candidate. It's just one aspect. And later on, we're going to talk about the economy. Then we're going to talk about what's in it for me. Then we're going to talk about his or his moral value. And all of these things you have to look when you're trying to select for what individual, not the necessarily the party, but the individual that's running for the office. Okay, okay. Individual ethics. So ethics are based on two things, right? Are based on my beliefs and society's beliefs. And it varies by the person, by the situation. If I'm unemployed, I may say, okay, my ethics may be a little bit more open for things that I might not have did if I had the money. Maybe I say, hey, I'm hungry. I got to eat or something. All right. Okay, ambiguity, the law, the real world. So I'm trying to keep this underneath it. That formal laws reflect ethical standards. After a while, society said this is what's ethical. What was ethical back in the 60s, in the 70s, in the 80s, in the 90s, it changes depending on society, okay? And what society feels is the value of the core value. If you look what's going on now in society, we're going into Generation Z. Those are students that are 18, 19, 20, just coming out of high school. What are their ethical values? If you look at the pendulum went way to the left or way to the right, whichever way you're looking at it, it usually swings back into the middle. Right now, they're looking at Generation Z. What I'm picking up from research is basically it's falling in more into the conservative. So does that mean your values are more conservative? More, hey, what's right or right for the majority individual? Okay. Okay, so now the next one, individual values and cores determine the combination of factors. You had a concept map, you added on to this. Okay, now business ethics is basically my behavior towards the employees. Now we could expand a little bit more. We did that in the classroom. Behavior towards the organization. How do I treat the organization? How do I use the organization's resources? Behavior towards economic agents. And if I look at economic between other firms, suppliers, customers, and corrupt managers, some managers make it all by themselves. They lie to the customers, make the numbers up, or they add in more hours to what the work is, or they try to reward themselves higher than what they deserve. Okay, so assessing ethical behavior. You gather the information about the organization. We talked about that. You analyze the facts, and then you make the ethical judgment. And that's what you have to do on the judgment, whether it's right or wrong, depending on the situation and what is going on through that individual. Okay, ethical norms. We looked at the utility, rights, justice, caring, and just you'll be familiar with it. I'm not going to go into detail on this. The author does a nice job on that. And when you look at the video that is supplied with that, it basically supplies that for healthy individuals to do that. Okay. All right, sources of ethics. If I look at that, okay, when I look at this figure, basically this is the source of ethics. That's what the rest of them are basically talking about the business, my individual, how I was growing up, what my parents or the person that I looked up to, that my caretaker, instilled the ethical values with it. Society. What does society say is ethical or not? Organization I work with. Some organizations say, that's okay. We get cheated a little. We're just taking money away from the government. We give it back to the people. Whatever it is, remember you're picking up all these different values that you're working with, and this is shaping your moral compass. Different factors, different values, different people, different situation. And you, as an individual, a business owner, shape those values. Hopefully, your moral compass is it's fair to all individuals. What you're trying to find out. And okay, stakeholders. Stakeholders, anyone that basically touches the company, and here it is. Managers, customers, community, suppliers. All these have a difference of how I deal with the organization, how I treat individuals. I want them to be treated equally among my stakeholders. I have an impact on them and their families or their relationships or their businesses. Okay, ethical effects of ethical or unethical behavior. Okay, again with the figure, behavior increases efficiency. If it's ethical, I feel good about myself. People like come shopping, working there. Unethical behavior, I think I'm being ripped off. And if I'm looking, and look at the different way people talk about each other candidate. Which way they're looking at. You're trying to find out which one is the most ethical candidate that I'm going to elect as the next president. Is it our current President Trump, whether you like him or not? Is he fair? Is he ethical? Is he honest? And he basically just has a bad demeanor, how he talks to people, but the rest of the things he seems kind of fair. So you're taking all these different components, looking at Bernie Sanders, looking at who else is running on there, Biden, even Elizabeth Warren, and you look into values and you see, could I live with these? Well, this is a person when he or she tells me this is what's going to happen, right? Okay, easier said than done. Remember, it has its consequences. Okay, company business ethics, adopt and written codes. The company says, here's our ethical values. We treat all customers and employees fairly, stakeholder responsibilities. We look towards the customer, we treat them fairly, employees, investors, suppliers. I'll open these up. I'm not going to go into them. You can look at them, stop the video, write them down. Try to write them down, not type them up. Because the more senses you utilize, the more you see, the higher probability you retain it in your long-term memory. Okay, responsibility to the customer. I'm going to stretch this out a little bit. And on this one here is a Consumer Bill of Rights. What a Consumer Bill of Rights? This is there's federal rights. State has the rights. Some municipalities have the right. Unfair business practices, price gouging. All these things make a big difference. Even though is it legal? You know what I mean? I could raise my prices, but hey, we're in a storm. I usually charge $3 now because of supply and demand. I'm charging $30 for a six pack of water. You know what I mean? Hey, come on, give me a break. In other places, I have this stuff. It's just that I have it there, and on my price gouging. Legally, I could do it. Is it ethical? All right, or am I really taking advantage of the situation? All right. The next one we have responsibilities of employees. You'll help employees to keep the job. Responsibility of employees. As a manager, I try to help them get educated. A lot of students are in this class. Your employees are paying for it. The government is paying for it. The taxes are paying for it. A lot of businesses utilizes the community colleges, whether it's Harper College or College of Lake County, Oakland or Joliet, because they're paying taxes into the community. And here I have this thing that I'm paying for this. I'm getting residents that are learning and satisfying my needs. That is the strength of community colleges versus four-year universities trying to take care of the whole global situation. Community colleges are looking at that segment in there. Understand? And now you're getting people who understand that market, that segment, how to market to that, and understand how you do connect with the international. All right? Okay, responsibility and environment. You have to start someplace. I can't clean the whole world. I start in my community. I look at the air pollution, look at the water pollution, land pollution, toxic waste disposal, recycling. Do I have those programs in my community? Every little bit helps. If you're going to pollute something, it's not just one speck of dust. It's a whole bunch of speck of dust. So I could control my little environment. By controlling that, I will help that out later on. Okay, approach it to society responsibility, and I'll look at the figure. And if I'm looking at this and all this is it obstructive, defensive, accommodative, and proactive. You want to be in this proactive. It's going, no, it's not that. I can find something. And you can find that when you look at global warming or call it climate change. Some people say, hey, there's no climate change. Some say we're going to pass away in 8 years. Okay, I understand there is some, but to one extreme. From one extreme to the other in the middle. I understand I have to in, improve my environment, and I'll do the best I can in my environment. To pay and everything else to higher taxes, and the taxes does nothing to do improve the environment, and other places are raising or utilizing fossil fuel like China and India, and we're at a disadvantage. You have to look at that from a business perspective, a competitive perspective, and from a society perspective to see which is the best course of action. I want to play fair. If I'm going to reduce my emissions, you have to reduce yours. Don't put me at a disadvantage because it hurts both parties. Because the air in the U.S. is fairly clean compared to what you have in China or some of the other countries. I'm not going to say it can't be better, right? But remember, that's the balance. That's the ethics. That's the balance. That's the hardest thing. What's my dilemma? I had to find that balance between keeping my business afloat, helping my employees, helping my customers, be environmentally helping the environment overall, and still make a profitability to take care of my family and my social needs, so I could be happy, have quality of life, and quality of life and standard of living. Then my standard of living and my kids and future generations to enjoy what I have right now. Okay. Okay, how does organizations influence government? Companies by themselves, they can't. There's the laws and everything else, political action groups, if they are reasonable and don't over-regulate, please. Remember, I'm not trying to take over and anything else, but regulation slows me down. Regulations cost me too much to bring in new housing, cost me too much to improve the environment because I'm tied down with regulations over regular. You can never get it right. As long as I get like 70%, please let me run with the project. That's a lot of businesses. Some businesses run at 40, 50%, knowing they're going forward. They'll have to make the changes over the next year or two before the project goes forward. Okay, former organizational dimensions. Let me open them up here for you. Got to look at the legal compliance, ethical compliance, the planetary giving, charitable giving, for lack of better words. Target Corporation, and then Obama Stakes basically gives $100,000 per year to support his art. So if I'm giving back to the charities, okay, I mean this what this basically is awarding funds or gifts from a business perspective to to a cause. And some businesses just say, hey, what's your cause? Whatever your cause is, I as a business will match our profit 50%, and you put in 50% and I'll put in 50%, or I'll put in 75% and you put in 25%. Is to give that philanthropy giving, you know, I mean, from a business perspective. We don't call it charity, call it philanthropy. Okay? All right, legal compliance. Okay, evaluating social responsibility. We have a corporate audit, a social audit to see, even though you're not a customer, am I still treating you fairly? Am I treating the environment fairly? Am I treating the customers around the environment, my residents, my neighbors, for lack of a better word? Am I being truthful to my suppliers? Am I helping my employees? I'm not doing anything that's unethical, and it's good business practices, and it's helping everybody else. All right, so that's chapter 2. All right, so thank you again. So let me just do it this way. I'll bring it back in here, and I'll stop this in a second. Expand back to level 1. So we covered everything on here. Evaluating responsibility. There's a lot to ethics. Remember, and when I look at ethics, a lot of times ethics is taught by, very rarely is it taught by a business individual, but business people should be taken. If fellow business people aren't ethical, it's usually taught by humanities or department. Look, who else knows about not being ethical as business people? Who else knows how I fall into these traps of, look, one thing being, let me just end this in an ending. Most business people are not unethical. They're very ethical. You have a certain percentage that are unethical. Like it or not, that's life. All people aren't bad. There's a certain percentages that are bad. You have to live with that. All right. So that small percentages push those away. Majority of business people are very ethical, but what they do, they make mistakes. When they make one mistake, oh shoot, I want to cover myself so I don't look bad. I don't look, oh geez, I'm going to lose money. I'm going to get fired. So they try to hide those mistakes. By hiding those mistakes, it snowballs. As it snowballs, it gets bigger and bigger, and before they know it, they're in a position they're caught. They're either being blackmailed by something, or or they're wanting to show that they really they lied and everything else just to try to make it go away. It just happens, all right. So, but remember that small percentages are very unethical. Majority of the people just make stupid mistakes. So when you're grading those people and you say, hey, is this a pattern? Are they always ripping off customers? Are they always doing it? No, they did this one time. So you have to look at that particular time. Same thing when you're looking at your politicians or anything else, or business people in the past. Did they make a mistake when they were in high school? I thought differently when I was in high school than I was when I got out of the service. I thought differently than when I went to the corporate world. We mature and we learn. Or was I still a jerk and everything else following up? Is there a pattern? If not, we've made that learning. That is part of life, and you have to take away what happened 20, 50 years ago. Fine, I made a mistake, I'm sorry. But we all change. That is part of growing. All right? So remember, and then plus the rules were differently. Was ethical back then, is not ethical now, it's ethical now, blah, blah, blah. All right, so anyway, thank you very much, and I'll see you in the classroom or online. Bye. Let's see how many minutes. Ooh, 17 minutes, not too bad. We did very good.